December 9th, 2025, Episode 6, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories, YouTube channel. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Aloha, good evening, and welcome to Episode 6, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories. Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories presents stories, research, and cultural folklore shared by people from around the world about their paranormal experiences. Dr. Moore discusses, compares, contrasts, and evaluates secular and historical literature with biblical perspectives on the paranormal, the supernatural, and the preternatural, as well as folklore and cultural practices and beliefs. Now, from the Doc Moore studio high up in the central Oahu, Hawaii mountains, this is Doc Moore. Good evening, everyone. Aloha. I'm Doc Moore. I'm going to talk with you about a topic tonight that I found very interesting. Now, this episode tonight will deal with animals and the paranormal. From different type of animals to specifically dogs and cats. And then I'll tell you a story I'm writing. I'm working on a story about a particular animal who had a psychic bond with a human being. So first I want to start with the animals in the Bible that describe supernatural behaviors and encounters. These animals carry a different type of spiritual meaning because they are representative of the interactions between man and God. Let's start with lions. Lions, for instance, Daniel, chapter 6, verses 22 to 23, Daniel, chapter 6, verse 16, and Daniel, chapter 6, verse 24. For instance, when the prophet Daniel was in the lion's den, God sent angels to keep their mouths shut so they couldn't and wouldn't bite Daniel. But when Daniel was taken out of the lion's den, the angels released the mouths of the lions, and the people that were thrown in the lion's den were immediately devoured. Now, how could this be? Well, according to the Bible, angels protected Daniel by controlling the lions' muzzles. This is paranormal. Lions are aggressive predators. And yet we are told that angels muzzled lions to protect Daniel from harm. Angels are supernatural beings that protected Daniel. Again, this is in Daniel, chapter 6, verse 22 to 23, chapter 6, verse 16, and chapter 6, verse 24, Daniel. What about a snake? Now we look at Genesis, chapter 3, verse 1, and Numbers, chapter 21, verse 6. What about a snake? In the Bible, the snake are considered cunning and a tempter. In Genesis 3:13, the snake caused Adam and Eve to disobey God. The snake spoke to Eve. Now, how can a snake talk? That is paranormal action by an animal, especially a snake, because a snake does not have vocal cords. Now, on the other hand, the snake in Numbers 21:9 was crafted by Moses based upon God's direction to protect people from deadly snake bites. So here's the snake having supernatural power, ability to talk. God also transformed Moses' staff into a snake, and this is in Exodus 4, verse 2, and Exodus 7, verses 10 to 12. Now here's another animal that piqued my interest. This is about a donkey. In Numbers 22:21 to 35, Balaam was told by a talking donkey about an angel standing in the road ready to kill Balaam. The donkey was given the power of speech. Again, another supernatural process that is not normal for this or any other animal such as the donkey. Again, this is a supernatural event, and we're talking about the paranormal in the Bible, the supernatural events based on animals. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 16, verse 8. The word scapegoat. God directed Aaron to choose a goat. Now he lays his hand, Aaron does, on the goat and puts the sin of the Hebrews onto the goat. The goat is sent out to the wilderness. This is God transferring sins from the Hebrews to an animal, a supernatural act. This is a paranormal act. But this is also where the term the scapegoat is derived. Again, Leviticus chapter 16, verse 8, and all of this paranormal actions. Now we're going to stay on the paranormal and the goat. Matthew 25, verse 32 to 33. Goats and lambs are both used as symbols of the righteous and the condemned. The goats are the ones that are going to hell. The lambs are the ones going to heaven. Because the lambs are on the right, the goats are on the left. Again, the goat is designed as the bearer of sin. It is a supernatural act assigned by God and placed on the animal, the scapegoat, as a metaphor for sinful people versus those who follow God's laws and subsequent judgment. Let's go further into the Bible, relationship between animals and the paranormal. In 2 Kings, chapter 22, verse 23 to 24, the prophet Elisha was being harassed, bullied by a group of boys, a large group of boys. They called him Baldy. But Elisha, in the name of God, Yahweh, cursed the boys. And according to the Bible, 2 she-bears came and killed 42 boys. This is the prophet of God using supernatural abilities and power to destroy human beings. The instruments of destruction were bears, animals, as described in the Bible, 2 she-bears. So these are some of the stories in the Bible that talk about animals and the supernatural, the relationship with God, their use by God to bring judgment on human beings or to protect human beings. And it's all paranormal. These are the things that surround them, the situations, the actions they're called upon to engage in, these animals. And I found this very fascinating because of this next topic that I'm going to discuss. And this deals with the supernatural with our own household pets, dogs and cats. Now let me pose this question to you, the audience. Can cats and dogs, can they see ghosts? According to the scientific community, no. According to some of the research that I have been doing, going through and reviewing, there is no indication, there's no scientific evidence that says dogs and cats can see ghosts. Scientists say they follow objects that we can't see or hear, and that's because of their extra strong hearing and ability to see and their smelling capabilities. For example, a dog has a sense of smell that's 1,000 times better than a human being. This is according to the American Kennel Society. And again, cats have rods in their eyes that let them see way better in the dark, perceiving little light and yet being able to see. Now, on the other hand, culturally, people believe yes, animals can see and interact with the supernatural. You know, the ancient Aztecs believed dogs could see ghosts. Egyptians believed cats were connected to both the living and the dead world. A lot of pet owners, people I know personally, they believe dogs and cats can see ghosts. So although scientific support is not prevalent, there are cultural beliefs that dogs and cats may have psychic ability. They can see in other dimensions. Some people culturally around the world believe that animals, particularly dogs and cats, have a sixth sense. A sixth sense. An ability to see into the other side of the veil. What do you think? You think dogs and cats can see ghosts? I posed this question in an informal survey. And this is the responses I've got. This is a few of the responses. I won't go into a lot, but there's a few. A lady wrote to me and said, yes, I think dogs and cats can see ghosts. She said she believes they can see ghosts because of what happened when she was having a person do a spiritual cleansing of her home. The person doing the spiritual cleansing and all the people present noticed her dog howling and barking at a door. The person doing the cleansing told her to keep the windows and doors open. She said her family got chicken skin, goosebumps, hair standing on their head. The person who was doing the cleansing said let the dog bark because the dog was telling her, the spirits are leaving your home. So this woman says she does believe the cats and dogs are aware of the supernatural and they are super sensitive. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to tell you names or addresses or locations of those people because they wanted to respond anonymously, so we got that. Now here's another response. A guy told me the other day that the day and hour that his father died at the Veterans Hospital, his father's dog laid down and died in their home, right next to the bed where his father usually laid. Here's another response. And another lady says she believes that dogs and cats can see ghosts. She said that she thinks a ghost is in her house, maybe in one of the rooms. And this is because she believes that one of the spirits that lived in the house was attached to that home and to the living space. The dog always acted as if the dog saw someone in an empty room. Now that's some of the responses I've gotten from asking this question. Can dogs, can animals, can cats, can they see ghosts? What do you think? Let me know what you think. Send your response to docmorecollectionhorror@hotmail.com. Now, I want to go to something dear to me, and it's about a dog. You know, I used to sit on the back porch in my house in Detroit when I was growing up. My brothers and we were always told, sitting around a campfire with my grandma in the yard, if you want to see a ghost, look between the ears of your dog on a moonlit night. My grandmama was from Louisiana, and you know how they believed in the haunts and the voodoo and, you know, all the spirits. And she would tell us, if you want to see a ghost, look between the ears of your dog on a moonlit night. You will see what the dog sees. You will see ghosts and spirits. So I wrote a story about what my grandmother said about using a dog's ears to see ghosts. And this story will be in my next book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories, Volume 2. But this story is about a psychic bond between a man and a dog. You see, the guy was a dog handler in the U.S. Army and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And after his military service, he was allowed to take his dog with him. They bonded so much. So he became his canine partner even in the police department where he worked after he left the military. And again, they had a bond. The dog's name was Talon, and the officer's name was Officer Bird. Officer Bird and Talon worked the night shift because Bird couldn't sleep well at night, so he elected to be a night shift, night tour duty guy. But this following case that I'm writing about, Officer Bird was paired with another person. He didn't usually work with partners, something in his past, but he finally was assigned a policewoman as his partner. So this is a supernatural tale about Officer Bird, his dog Talon, and Officer Frank. Officer Bird and Frank are assigned to a case where children are being harmed. Included in this briefing by the chief of police and the mayor was a minister and a Dr. Pratt. Dr. Pratt was a paranormal investigator. They were all brought in due to requests by a former orphanage director who was recently killed in the orphanage. The orphanage is on the edge of town. Nothing happened there before, but just recently, things began to happen in this orphanage where now kids are being scratched, bitten, attacked. Something is attacking them. The police that were called out, they went to check and find out what's going on, but they didn't see anything, couldn't hear anything, didn't know anything, so they just left. Now, recently something has just turned. A couple of children were found dead in this one back area of the orphanage that this wing was off limits. The former director called the police and said that he was going to investigate, that he needed cops out there as soon as possible. He was murdered, and his body was found in that same wing that was placed off limits. So Dr. Pratt was called in to do some background to this place. And here's Dr. Pratt's report. The building was built on a site where there was a bunch of men who were killed in a fight in a bar room. It seems that they were fighting over a woman and money. The fight was massive, multiple men involved, weapons drawn, and this fight resulted in all men involved ended up dying right there in that bar room on the floor, killing floor, the same place. Dr. Pratt assisted the police with the history behind the orphanage, gathering research as much as possible that revealed one of the persons that was at this fight was not killed. It was a woman. Legend had, according to Dr. Pratt, legend had this woman was a sorceress. And Dr. Pratt discovered that whenever the woman appeared, wherever she went in that town, she caused a lot of things, bad things to happen. And where she lived in that town, that's also where men, women, and children were found dead or dying. The townspeople were aware of the woman and all the deaths going on around her. So they got that woman and they burned her at the stake. But as she lay dying, she laid a curse on the town. And she said that she was coming back and she would kill them and their children. She said, "I'll be back." Now the minister who attended this meeting said he believed there was something to the story because he was looking at town records and at statements of people in the past that said that this orphanage, where it's located now, was cursed. The ground had been cursed, and the woman's threat had actually been happening over the centuries. The minister pulled out some documents detailing funerals and deaths. They showed that a number of people over the years had been attacked, killed, and the church buried them. The police looked at each other and said, "How is this possible? How could this be going on?" But the minister said nobody knew about the history of the orphanage deaths that were happening randomly, but in the same place. The orphanage was built right over this former bar, Dr. Pratt said. Anyway, they looked at each other and said, "Okay, we're going to go ahead and investigate this." But in order to do that, Dr. Pratt said we need to talk to some of the people that work there. So they went to the orphanage. The team all went to the orphanage. They spoke to the new director, who really didn't know anything of what was going on. She was new to the town, and the previous director was recently murdered. But the new director said, "Let's talk to some of the old-timers." They all said, "You should talk to old Jenny." Jenny's been working for a long time. She's in her 70s, and she's still going. Still working right here. So they asked Jenny, "How long have you been working here?" She said, "All my life. I was brought up in this orphanage. My mom and dad were killed while they were here. I also knew the woman that was killed, according to my mom and dad, my grandparents. The woman that was killed here back in the old days, she didn't die. She was burned at the stake, but she didn't die. She cursed the place. And it's been that way ever since," old Jenny said. Old Jenny told her tale. Long time ago, you see, that woman that was at the root of all that fighting and killing was herself, burned at the stake, killed by the townspeople. Yeah, they burned her at the stake. She was one of my ancestors, and she practiced black magic. Now, folks say the woman never died. They say she never died or she came back, and while she was burning in the flames, she prayed to somebody, and something evil entered her as she was dying and kept her. And she always sounded like a child because she would sacrifice one of the children of the town to keep alive. Jenny said, "I don't work there too much at night, but I will tell you this. That place needs to be blessed. This place needs to be blessed. Hasn't been blessed." And Jenny said, "If you go in there, you will see it." Now, Officer Bird looks at her and says, "Well, how will we see something that's dead?" She said, "It could be a ghost or whatever." Then Jenny looked at Bird's dog, Talon, and said, "He sees it. He sees it." And Jenny looked at the minister and said, "You will all see it, but you'll need holy water. And you need to put holy water on. Just look through the ears of that dog when it gets to midnight. Look between the ears of that dog and you will see it." Officer Bird said, "Okay." Officer Frank said, "Yes." Jenny said, "All dogs have a sense of the evil spirit world. Your dog has that sixth sense. You know that. You saw it in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And I know you were there because you were on a hunter-killer team that got blown up. Your aura is telling me this. Your team, they were betrayed by the one of the people who was supposed to be your interpreter and guide. Your dog pointed out the traitor, and you killed him when that terrorist tried to kill you as the sole survivor who could reveal the truth." Officer Bird sat back. Jenny said something that no one else knew, that only Bird knew, and that the traitor was supposed to be your guide. That's what Jenny said. Jenny said, "He betrayed y'all, but he got his because you shot him, didn't you?" And that's when Bird sat back again, because nobody knew that but him. Nobody. And he looked at Jenny, and he said, yeah. Jenny said, "Well, you can let all your grief go. You did the right thing. You killed that evil man who was going to kill more people, more soldiers, more civilians. Unfortunately, he did kill your platoon, but you stopped him because he did that in the past to other soldiers and Marines. And you got him because you have that sense too. Byrd stood up. Frank stood up. The minister, Dr. Pratt, they all stood up. The minister said, I'm going to go in there. Jenny said, I'll go there. I'll go over there with you, but I'm going to try to talk to this thing and send it away. And after that, I'm going. I'm getting out of there. When we're going to do this, Jenny looked at everyone and said, tonight's the night to do it, at midnight. Midnight. The minister had gotten everything he needed. He got the holy water. He got the cross. Officer Frank said, I had a sense this was going to happen. Byrd said, yeah, this investigation leads to this, so let's get it done. Let's get it going on. This is what we got to do. So Jenny, Dr. Pratt, the minister, Officer Frank, and Officer Byrd and Talon met in the parking lot of the orphanage at midnight. The minister said a strong prayer of protection and made a sign of the cross on each one of them. Then he touched them with the holy dab of holy water. The minister said a prayer in the entrance of the orphanage. He asked God for protection from all evil. Then they opened the door and they went in. The orphanage was dark, spooky, no life in it. Jenny said, we'll go down the hallway. That's when you'll feel it. And sure enough, as they turned and went down a long hallway that connected to the two wings, Jenny started to shake. I'm not in this building at night. I'm not here in the dark. Talon started to growl. But they went forward to the old wing. Dr. Pratt pushed the door open. They stood there in the dark, listening, trying to see. And they heard a voice. The voice in the back said, come in, come in. The minister went in first. This holy man raised his cross in a container of blessed water. He sprinkled holy water around, and they all were shocked as they saw the smoke and heard the holy water sizzle as they hit the ground. Jenny said, this ground is unholy. This ground is deadly. The minister turned and said, Jenny, leave. Go ahead and go. You've done enough. But Jenny said, no, I owe it to these children. I should have done something a long time ago about my relative. You see, I could have done something a long time ago by trying to lift that curse off this place, but I didn't. I was scared. But now I'm here. Officer Byrd walked forward with his dog, Officer Frank standing with him. Both had their guns drawn. The minister said, in the voice to the darkness, who's in here? I command you to talk in the name of Jesus Christ. All of this is holy ground now. The voice said, come in. I've been waiting for you. The voice told Jenny, it's time for you to die. Jenny, Byrd, Frank, Dr. Pratt, Minister, you'll all die slowly. Minister, I think I'll save you for last, and your screams of mercy will fall on deaf ears. The minister said, who are you? Why are you here? The voice replied, I'm here to kill you. I was killed here. I was killed here, but I still exist to destroy you. I was sent by my master to make all of you pay. You will pay with your lives. And I'll continue to destroy these children. They're so good. Can't stand it. They must be destroyed. But come on back. Come on back. Come meet me. And find your place among the dead here. The minister said to Bird and Frank, be careful. Talon, Officer Bird's dog, canine warrior, was growling and pulling against his leash, trying to go forward into the darkness. Jenny said, remember, he sees. You got to look between his ears to see. Bird pulled Talon back to him and knelt down. The minister poured holy water over Talon's head. The minister rubbed holy water over Officer Bird's hands and rubbed holy water over Officer Bird's eyes. Bird looked between Talon's ears. Bird looked deep into the darkness between Talon's ears. And at first he couldn't make out what he was seeing. Then he saw something coming toward him in a jerking manner, slowly toward him, a huge shadow. It looked like a large, extra, very large person, a woman. But this woman had claws and fangs. And he heard her singing in a child's voice. And Jenny said, oh, that's some of the children. She's using their voices. And then Jenny held up her bag and started to chant and say stuff in a language no one knew. The minister looked at Jenny. Jenny started to transform. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She held up her bag and she started speaking. The evil creature woman stopped. And it started to moan. And it said, oh, no, no, no. The minister raised his cross and said to the oncoming monster that Jesus Christ protects us. Saint Michael protect us in the hour of danger with your love and your white light of love and protection. Jesus protect us with your love. The minister shouted at the evil spirit woman, you are no longer wanted on this earth. You are not allowed to be here. No more staying on this earth. You will go to hell. Go to hell where you belong. Meanwhile, Dr. Pratt was taking pictures, but he inadvertently was moving too close. The thing reached up and snatched his camera and pushed him to the ground. The police officer started shooting the entity. The minister reached down and put holy water on the dog's mouth. The minister shouted to Officer Bird, let the dog loose, now. Bird gave the first command to Talon, Star. This alerted Talon. Talon jerked hard at the thing that was attacking the minister and Dr. Pratt. Officer Bird unclipped Talon's leash and yelled the second part of the command, Bear. Talon leaped on the evil entity. Every time Talon bit the entity, sparks, fire, and flashes of lightning like electricity lit up the evil spirit, creature woman. The minister splashed holy water on the entity, and it was screaming, and the dog was biting it. The minister rubbed holy water on the police officer's hands, and they rushed and grabbed the thing while it was fighting the dog. And they all put up a fight, all three of them against the evil spirit. But that evil spirit woman was strong. She was putting up a fight and was throwing them around. The entity bit and scratched them, and scratched Talon, who howled with each strike, but Talon kept attacking. The minister, Dr. Pratt, and Jenny slowly, quietly advanced on the entity while it was fighting with the police and the dog. Jenny put her bag on that thing, and it fell to the ground, shaking and screaming in pain. The minister took his cross and placed it on the evil creature. Dr. Pratt and the minister yelled at the creature, telling it to go, leave this earth, go back to hell now. The earth broke open. The evil thing fell into the pit, screaming, because other creatures were pulling it down. And as it was going into the pit, the souls of the children, the men and the women, and all the people it killed left that unholy place. Talon sat back on his haunch and started to pant. All of them had cuts from where the evil spirit woman scratched them. Officer Bird said everything looked okay now. Officer Frank turned and moaned. Jenny was on the ground. The minister knelt by her and put his hand on her. Dr. Pratt checked for a pulse. He looked at the group and informed them that Jenny was gone. The minister made a sign of the cross and said a prayer for her soul. Jenny suddenly sat up, reached up, and forcefully grabbed the minister and yelled in his face, "My bag holds her ashes and the earth she was burned in. She's going back to ash and dirt. Now destroy this building. It will come back. Destroy the building. Destroy it. Salt the ground, like in the Bible. Salt it. When you spread salt all over the earth, nothing comes back. Nothing. Heed my words." Then Jenny breathed for the last time, and they watched as her soul left her body in a white mist and floated toward heaven. The group met the police chief, the mayor, and the orphanage director. They told the chief what happened. They finished by telling the leaders what Jenny said with her dying breath. The chief said, "This is not going to go out to the papers, so we're not going to panic people." The mayor said, "We aren't going to talk about this with the media or the public, but we will do what she said." That same day, bulldozers, wrecking crews, demolition crews showed up and flattened that wing of the orphanage, and then they flattened the entire building, both sides of the orphanage. They totally demolished them. They pulled away all of the building and all the rubble. And then 5 trucks fully loaded with salt spread salt over the entire area, starting from one area and going across back and forth. They spread salt over a whole mile. They covered completely the demolished wing of the orphanage, the other orphanage, and everything around it, north, south, east, and west, until the whole area was covered in salt. The minister said prayers to the east, the west, the north, and the south. Later on, life returned to normal. Officers Frank and Bird worked together so much that they became husband and wife, got married, and left the police force. Talon lived a long, long life as a working canine dog. But Talon still suffered from his wounds from fighting that evil creature and passed away. Franks and Bird got 5 new German Shepherd puppies all at one time from Talon's lineage. You see, Talon had mated with another German Shepherd working dog and had puppies. So Frank and Bird moved to the countryside to live on their own big yard with their 5 dogs and their memories of that night. They never forget that event that impacted them. The amazing thing was all 5 of the Talon's German Shepherd puppies inherited Talon's psychic bond with Bird, and Franks, and their children. Meanwhile, the minister grew the congregation in size because people far and wide learned stories of what happened and knew that this minister had a big part in destroying an evil spirit. And a lot of that was because Dr. Pratt wrote up this story in his reports and told about it in interviews. The minister awakened people's spirits and rekindled their belief in God. And this also included Officer Bird, who, with his wife, Officer Frank, regularly came to church with ministers. That was a good story. I dug up a lot of research about dogs and cats, and how they can see things and the psychic bond they usually have with people, the handlers in combat. And I can talk about that more in different stories about my books when I talk about combat and soldiers and Marines in action, military in action. But anyway, I have more of that, and you can read about other stories about dogs and how they attack evil in my book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories, that's already out in Amazon. Well, we've come to the end of episode 6. Mahalo and thank you. Thank you for being a part of my Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories YouTube channel. Please join me next time as I bring you more interviews, more stories of the supernatural, the paranormal, and the macabre. Send your comments, your stories, your comments, your questions to my website email, docmorecollectionhorror@hotmail.com. Please subscribe for more stories of the paranormal. Until next time, that noise in the dark, that bump in the night, is it real? You be the judge. This is Stephen B. Moore Sr., Ph.D., Media Productions, LLC. Music created by Tanya and Stephen B. Moore Sr. and performed by the Doc Moore and the Morohana Band. All content created, produced, and presented is copyrighted. This is Stephen B. Moore Sr., Ph.D., Media Productions, LLC.